Welcome to Bosses with Baggage. I'm Sherry Sutton, your host and business growth guide. Around here, we believe that failures are our superpowers. So in this podcast, we'll explore the many ways that setbacks can mold, shape, and change your life and your business and ensure that you come out of the fire better than before. Through interviews with business leaders and discussions of my own personal struggles, we'll unlock the secrets to turning setbacks and low moments into opportunities to thrive. From approaching your business with a servant's heart to getting comfortable with being the face of your brand, each episode will be a safe, judgment-free zone to reframe the concept of failure with honesty, empathy, grace, and a whole lot of laughter. So are you ready? Let's go.
Hey friends, so excited to be here today with my friend Kerri Steele. She is the founder of an amazing organization called Little Hearts of Hope, and I'm so excited to have her here today. Say hi, Kerri.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Sherry.
Of course. So tell us just a little bit about you, and then we'll get right into your story.
I would love to. Kerri Steele. I am the founder and executive director of Little Hearts of Hope. I'm also the Cake Lady of Frisco, and I am the mama of 3 teenagers. I guess my oldest is not a teenager anymore. I have 16, 18, and 20, and about to get married.
I know, that's so exciting. We were talking about that just before the show. So next week you're getting married.
Yes.
Oh,
very
that's so
exciting. Yeah.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
So, we are friends through a networking organization here in Frisco, Texas, which is where we live, and, have sort of known each other for a few years. But I know a little bit about why you started Little Hearts of Hope, but I'd love for you to share the full story with us, just because I find it so inspiring and it's so aligned with our mission here at Bosses with Baggage around sharing those dark nights of the soul and how they really propel us to a life of service where, we can do really amazing things for other people that kind of comes out of our challenges. And at the same time, support ourselves. Right. So tell us a little bit about why you started the organization.
Yeah, well, I think so many nonprofits start from someone having an experience and realizing just a lack of support in a certain area, and make it their mission to fill that hole for other people. So my story is that at the age of 31, with 3 little babies, 2, 4, and 6, my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer and given 6 months to live. It's a very rare cancer called desmoplastic small round cell tumor. There's no treatment for it. Everything's considered experimental. We were kind of just completely shocked. I was homeschooling my oldest. We had just moved into our forever home. We were getting ready to consider adding baby number 4 to the mix. He was a long distance runner. We cooked organic food. It just, nothing made sense.
The last people you would think that would happen to, right?
Yeah. He was the healthiest cancer patient you could ever meet. So with that said, because he was so healthy and a runner, and I think also his desire to live for his family, that 6-month lifespan that they gave him was actually 3 years. So he lived for 3 years with terminal cancer. Wow. And that had us traveling all over the place, trying to find experimental treatments, in and out of hospitals, a lot of time at MD Anderson. And on Christmas Eve of 2012, he went home to be with the Lord. And I spent a year in shock. I don't know how we survived it, but we did. Coming out of that year, I was kind of like, what am I going to do? How am I going to take care of my family?
Were you working, or were you home? Were you home with the kids?
I was home with the kids. Yeah. I had
Wow.
not worked since I was pregnant with my oldest. I had quit the workforce and stayed home to be a stay-at-home mom.
Which is way
And
harder than being in the workforce, by the way.
yes, 1,000 times. And so I had worked in cardiac rehab before that, inpatient right after surgery. I would help people rehab to get to outpatient rehab. And I loved it, but I didn't want to go back to working 12-hour shifts. My kids were used to having me at home, and I didn't want them to have lost their father and lose their mother and end up in a situation that was just completely unfamiliar to them. So I decided to spend a week praying and fasting and asking God to give me some direction on what to do. And during that time, I got this vision for what we now call Little Hearts of Hope, but a way to support other families who can't afford therapy because therapy is very cost restrictive. And just to help parents know how to talk to their kids age appropriately, especially young kids, about cancer. Kids really do know something is going on. And if we don't talk to them about it, they kind of make up in their mind what's going on because they know, they're so intuitive. They know something is wrong. And because kids are egocentric, of course, they tend to think it's about them. And so we don't ever want to put that on kids. Anyway, I digress.
That's an
So
important point, right? Like, I mean, it's back to that idea of turning your pain into purpose. And yeah, I mean, that will stay with them forever, right? And it's not, kids aren't selfish because they're jerks. They're just selfish because, frankly, the part of their brain that
right,
helps them understand their relationships with other people don't exist yet, right? They're just
right.
trying to
It's developmentally completely appropriate.
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had been fortunate to be able to put the kids into therapy, but that while it was helpful, it didn't answer the questions when you're having dinner or you're tucking the kids into bed and they ask really hard questions and you don't know what to say or how little to say or how much to say. Um, and every child is different. So they all process their grief in different ways, anticipatory grief and regular grief. I say regular, there's also complicated grief. But yeah, I really, really felt like some cancer ministry this would be a great addition for them to be able to support the family holistically. There had been a big movement right around the time we were going through it for caregiver support because that is such a taxing role.
Yeah.
So I brought it to a cancer ministry, not thinking I would have anything to do with this. It was just an idea to give to somebody to help other families. And they were like, we love it. Come present it to our board for us. And I was like,
And so this was a way to talk to kids about cancer, like kind of let's build a curriculum around that. Was that the idea?
yeah. So the ends of it really were, let's address some of the common emotions that kids will experience when they're watching something like this, when that's happening in their home. And so it's things like abandonment, jealousy. Kids get jealous because somebody else is getting all of the attention, especially if it's a sibling. There are so many support groups and ministries that support kids with cancer. They're always getting gift packages and all those kinds of things. And those other kids are kind of like, hey, what about me? There's false guilt. A lot of kids tend to think that they did something or didn't do something that could have prevented it. Anger, that their whole world is rocked upside down. They have to leave extracurricular sports or they can't go to birthday parties because of being somebody in their family being immunocompromised. They can't be exposed to it either. So it was really, here are some common emotions and here are some practical coping skills to deal with them. So play therapy and art therapy is what we based it off of. We don't do therapy, but I worked with my kids' play therapist, the hospice social worker, and the school counselor that my kids had all worked with. And in putting this program together to say, What are the most common emotions, and what are ways that parents can teach coping skills to their kids? Because you don't have to be a therapist to teach your kid healthy coping skills. And then how can we package that and send it out to families? Because we also don't want them to have to come to a location at a specific time and date, because that's not practical when you have cancer. And so, so we ship them out sort of like those monthly subscription kits that you get. And every month they get a themed package with 2 activities based on a different emotion. We are faith-based in that we share that our emotions are a gift from God. Everybody has them. Our emotions are not bad. It's what we do with them that's helpful or hurtful. So how can we learn to deal with things like anger, for example? We send a package of bunch of balloons. I don't know if you've seen those before. It's like 100 balloons. You attach it to a water hose and it fills up 100 water balloons instantly.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. We've played with those. Yeah.
Yeah. So we send a package of those with a giant target and a Sharpie marker, and they write things that they're angry about on the water balloons and throw it at the target. Because anger is one of those emotions that has a physical energy to it. And so we have to have that release in a healthy way. We don't want to punch a wall. We don't want to tear up, important things. Just different ways to handle very common emotions that kids are experiencing. So the group that I presented it to loved it. And they said, hey, why don't you run the program for us? But by the way, don't know how much you know about nonprofits, but we have already set our budget for the year. So we're also going to need you to go fundraise for your salary and for all of the materials. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm like, this is just.
No, but I have the idea. You see, I don't want to do it.
I want security. I want a 401k. I want health insurance. I want regular hours. I don't think I'm going to get that here. And they're like, you'd be a perfect person to run it. We really love it. Think about it. So I kind of spent 2 weeks like praying and really wrestling with God. Like, really? You're asking me to live in such uncertainty when our whole entire world has been rocked? And then I got to this point after about 2 weeks and I was like, the reality is the worst thing that I could have imagined has already happened to me. And we have lived through that. And so if this is just a job, if it doesn't work, I'll find a new job. I'm going to give it a try because I really do believe that there are people who could use this. It would have been great for me and for my kids. And so I gave it a shot. And after a couple of months, they'd come to me and they said, we really believe this is its own nonprofit. It might even be bigger than our own nonprofit. It really won't fit like under the umbrella of another one. You need to branch out and create your own. We will help you. We will support you along the way. And I kind of threw another little temper tantrum with God and was like, absolutely not. I'm not starting a nonprofit. I refuse to do this. And another couple of weeks of just being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to start a nonprofit. I don't know anything about nonprofits. And I hate asking people for money. And so got to the same conclusion. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I don't want to not have this resource out there for families because I'm afraid of it failing or because I'm afraid of not being able to provide for my family. And I really just sort of threw out, okay, I will do this as long as I can pay my bills. If I can't pay my bills, I'm done. I'm shutting it down. And it'll be 10 years in August. We'll be celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
And you've paid your bills.
I have paid my bills every month. We have never been without. In fact, we've even been able to go on spring break trips. But we now are nationwide. We ship all over the country. We serve 100 kids a month. We just grew our capacity to be able to serve 200 kids a month. It's really super exciting. I love what I do. And you use the perfect words for just having a purpose for the pain in and of itself is so healing and so powerful. And I'm so grateful that I get to do this and that I said yes to God.
Cool. Yeah, I've had those moments too. I think, as you allow yourself to be open to the messages, whether it's God or universe or, your whatever your higher power is, if you allow yourself to be open to those messages, sometimes there's like stuff that comes and you're like, okay, I get where this makes sense, but no. I'm super not into that. Thanks. Thank you very much. And I've had those, even this podcast, like this was a divine download. Like this was here's the name, here's the purpose. And I'm like, what like that? And then so that happened. And then it was, you're going to do a TEDx. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? But I trusted that there was some sort of a plan. And I allowed myself to focus on the action that was required to fulfill what I thought I was being, told to do. And I think there's such a power in living a life where you are actually living in the grace of your higher power and saying, I am surrendering to whatever your will is for me. I will take the action to the extent that I'm smart enough to realize what you're telling me. Right. Yeah. And I'm willing to take that action and take that leap of faith. And I think when we do that, it allows us a life beyond our wildest dreams, because we in our limited thinking, we can't even think of the things that we could do. Right? But if we're willing to hear that from another source, it opens up a world of possibilities for us.
Yeah. I was just telling somebody the other day, having a nonprofit has done two things for me. Number one, it has continued to increase and build my faith, because I see just how many things happen that I can't make happen on my own. And that is so fun to be a part of, to see how things come together from seeds planted years ago, and you have totally forgotten about it. And then something comes up and you're like, oh my goodness, that's what that was for. I had no idea, but just taking the steps, right? And then number two, I get to see the best of humanity on a daily basis. Like I get to meet people who are so generous and so kind with their wisdom, with their energy, with their money. It's just such a beautiful group of people to get to interact with day in and day out. It's such a fun job. Nonprofit work is hard. And I have taken a lot of classes on nonprofit management and grant writing and all of that kind of stuff. I don't have a 9-to-5. I have whenever it comes up, it just is what it is. But I love it. And I never could have comprehended loving the entrepreneurial spirit and working in a nonprofit and honestly just not having that security that I really thought I was looking for, of a steady paycheck and all the benefits and all that kind of stuff. This is so much more fulfilling than I could have created for myself.
Yeah, I think that's true of a lot of entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs who are, that soul based, right? Like you are, where you're really, purpose driven, because you can have a purpose and fulfill your purpose and still pay your bills, right? And a lot of people go into entrepreneurship trying to make it, a 9-to-5 job, or even a less than that, right? They've been sold on this idea of like, you can work 3 hours a day and make millions of dollars a year, right? Like those are usually scams. Sorry, everybody. No, you don't want to hear that, but they're generally scams. But we try to find something, and we get really upset that we're not as secure as we were in the corporate world. But what I've found is the more I let that go, and the more I say, okay, where do you want me, right? Higher power, God, where do you want me to move this thing next? And I know that you will take care of me as a result, right? I know, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to, $100 million in the bank, though maybe, but it means that I will always be taken care of.
And I think that brings its own sense of peace and security within us, because we're not fighting against ourselves. I don't know how else to say that other than it just feels like a perfect alignment.
Right. And then the money comes. Like, that's the weird thing. You do
Well,
these.
I'm still working in the nonprofit world, Sherry. So
I don't mean like, yeah, and I don't mean like mass money, but like enough money, like money to pay your bills, right? Money to fulfill the purpose that you've been given, right? I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying you don't have to do the work. It's not, you don't magically get checks in the mail, but I think the money does come, and especially if you're coming from that place of alignment.
It's really, truly amazing, because we can't know everything. We can't do everything. It has to be the people that you surround yourself with that help you accomplish those goals. No one can do everything.
Yeah, that's something that I admire so much about you. I went to one of your fundraisers. We made these cute little pumpkins, and we like attached with glue like these little succulents on them, and they turned into these really cute little centerpieces. So anybody who hasn't done those,
Oh my gosh, so many people.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the venue was donated. So Jason Young with, I think he has Verona Villa, the NAC Theater, and then, and I'm drawing a blank of the name of the place.
Oh, I know, I am too. It's here in Frisco.
It
It's the
is.
same building as Maker's Gym. We'll think of it here in a second.
Yes, it's the floor Bevet.
Mhm.
But he's so incredibly generous. He donated the space. And then Plant and Sip, Gisela, who runs this company, her and her team came in and did the workshop. Snooze donated all of the food for the event. My board of directors worked for hours setting everything up and taking everything down, soliciting donations. We had so many raffle prizes. The photography, maroon and white photography, did all of our photography for free. I mean, it's so beautiful to see the generosity of so many people coming together, and we can't help each family face to face, but when we have an event like that, it's the power of so many people coming together that your $50 ticket might help one kid get one package, but when 100 people come together, right, it's just the exponential value of people coming together to help hurting kids. And it can be so much fun. It's a ton of work, but so much fun and so easy to give back and to help hurting people in a way that is practically helping them day in and day out. And
I
thank
think
you for coming to that, by the way.
Of course. One of the things that struck me, and one of the things I admire so much about you.
We had set up for 85 and we had to set up another table.
Yeah.
So I don't even know the final head count.
A lot.
But almost 100. Yeah.
All of those people were so excited to be there. We're so happy to donate. We're so supportive and loving, and they all loved you, right? And I think that that's one thing that sometimes you see these nonprofits from the outside and you don't see the work that comes into it, and you don't see the love. And I've been to a lot of like fundraisers like that, and it didn't have the same kind of a vibe, right? And I think because you really ooze from everything about you, maybe that's a gross word to use, but you get the right. This love for what you do, and this incredible compassion, and you bring people with you, right, in that. And I think that that's one of the things that I loved just watching you, and I loved watching all the people around you, and the people who, you're just a magnet for those people who want to help. And I think that that's, again, not only a credit to you, but a credit to being in alignment, right? Like when you are in alignment like that with what you should.
Well, I think that there the idea of that is sort of twofold. Number one, you have to be authentic.
Mhm.
People know whether you're real or not, whether you have a hidden agenda or not. We all have that intuitive feeling within us, and we can tell when someone is genuine or not. A lot of those people did know my story and did watch my family walk through what we walked through, and desired to help in practical ways. But there's only so many ways to help. And um number two, there are just so many amazing people in the world. We don't hear about it, and unless we are actively engaging in those things that are bringing healing and help to people, we probably won't see it. And so you saw that because you were one of those people who has a heart to help and a desire to love people well. And so you're in the arena of the same people, or the people who have the same heart. And so it's the idea of, we kind of surround ourselves with people who are going to support us and love us and lift us up and encourage us and help us to do better, just like we are with the people around us. And again, it's exponential. It's the ripple that keeps on going. It never, ever hurts to put good into the world, ever. Even if you get nothing back, whoever you helped got something, and you don't know how that help for them is going to allow them to help somebody else. And I just think we can all do good things. It doesn't have to be on any sort of scale. It's just a daily choice to lift somebody up, to support somebody, to encourage somebody, to make somebody smile. We all have it in us, and it makes us better.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I ask everyone in this podcast is, if you were talking to someone who is like kind of at that point of that dark night of the soul, where they are just really struggling with what's.
I mean, I would say for me, at my lowest point, I felt like I was drowning in my grief. I had to have people remind me to breathe. I mean, I was breathing, but it was shallow. The most I could do in a day was get up and fix my kids' breakfast and walk them to school. And the rest of the day, I had no energy to do anything. And for me, I think the thing that got me out of bed, the thing that kept me going day after day, was my love for my children and wanting to do the best that I could do for them, even if it was only breakfast. Like if we ordered pizza every single night for dinner because I didn't even have the energy to cook. The grief is, you feel like you're drowning. And I had an aunt who lost her husband the same time I lost mine, and her kids were grown. And she called me one day and she said, "I'm so jealous that you have your children to wake up for every morning, because all I have is an empty house." And I said to her, "So what gets you up every morning?" And she said, "I pray every single morning, God, give me the strength to get up." And I said, "I do the same thing. Like I have my kids to get up for, but I still have to pray that same prayer to get myself up in the morning." And so for me, it's my faith that God is going to use that pain for a purpose. And then taking one tiny step. If it was brushing my teeth, it was just doing that. And then you build up stamina. That season does go. Therapy is wonderful. I love Jesus and I love my counselor. I need both of them. It's work. It is hard work, but the benefits really far outweigh the place that I was in. I didn't even like myself. It was terrible. And I'm like, I'm sick of myself and this sadness and this moping. I don't even want to be around myself. And so, tiny steps. Some days it's brushing your teeth. Some days it's fixing breakfast. And some days it's taking a shower. And then before you know it, it'll be, I can do all three of those things and still return a phone call. It's not giant leaps. It's tiny little baby steps, one day at a time. And not isolating. I think isolating is the worst thing you can do when you're in that dark night.
Yeah, the CDC came out last year with something that we have an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. A lot of it came from COVID, and a lot of it just comes from our, natural insecurity. But I think as a society, we're starting to get to that place. Glad that you commented.
Yeah, it feels like the easiest thing to do, but it's the worst thing we can do. We're built for community. We're built for relationship. Even if it's one other person in our life, isolation is a killer.
Yeah, I'm a big isolator.
I am too.
I'm an only child, and boy, I can see.
It's so easy to do, and it feels like it's the right thing to do because that's all we want. But it's so dangerous, especially when we're in that dark place, because we start to believe the thoughts that we're thinking instead of having someone speak truth and encouragement into our lives.
Yeah.
We need people.
Thank you so much. You are an inspiration. Your story is an inspiration. I appreciate.
Yeah. littleheartsofhope.org. All of our information is on there. There's so many ways to get involved: sponsoring a child, hosting a supply drive, coming to help pack some of the packages. I love coming and sharing my story because I think that the more it gets out, the more people realize how much support kids need when they have a parent or a sibling. They're forgotten ones. They really are. And people don't think about it unless they're in that situation. And so helping to raise awareness of the needs of those kids in the home. It's huge.
It's huge. Thank you again for everything you do. And thanks for being a guest today.
Thank you for letting me share my story, Sherry. So good to see you.
You too.
Okay. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you for listening to Bosses with Baggage. We are honored that you chose to spend your precious time with us. I hope that you are feeling inspired to reframe your setbacks into your superpowers so that you can change not only your life, but the life of everyone around you. If you enjoyed today's podcast, and I sure hope you did, please subscribe, rate, and share on your favorite podcast listener. And if you have any ideas for a future guest, or you need some help growing your business, I'd love to connect with you. You can find me directly on my website, which is sherrysutton.com, SherrySutton.com. We'll see you next time.